Hello and welcome to All Things Foster, a place for coffee, connection, and community. Guys, we are launching a 3-part series on the bridge today. And so I've got some ladies that are here that are going to share kind of the heartbeat behind the bridge and how it all works and all those things. But before we get to that, our episode sponsor this week is Kindred Construction. And so they say if you've got a stone-coated steel roof, Kindred would like to help protect your investment. Schedule a free, no-obligation roof inspection, and we'll make sure that your roof is in great shape or catch any issues before they become costly repairs. As a thank you, every completed stone-coated steel roof inspection is automatically entered to win a family package at an Amarillo Sod Poodles game. It's a quick, free review, and it could put your family at the ballpark. Call Bracken at Kindred Construction at 806-340-6205 and schedule your inspection and get entered to win. And I say this just about every week, but our sponsors are great folks, good people that I trust. And so if you need roofing help, definitely touch base with Bracken. So today we have a couple of ladies from the bridge. So we have Leslie and Courtney. So thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, we're excited.
Absolutely. So before we kind of dig into the bridge and all the things, kind of give me a little bit of background about yourselves. Courtney, we'll start with you. Tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Perfect. So I am born and raised in the Panhandle. I was born in Pampa, moved to Borger, moved back to Pampa, which could be controversial in some circles. But I grew up in Pampa after that and went to WT and pursued my bachelor's in science and psychology. And I graduated from WT in 2017. And then I graduated college with no idea what I wanted to do when I grow up.
Yeah.
Which honestly still true. But my brother-in-law told me about the bridge and I had no idea what it was, but I did an internship there just to kind of see what it was like and what being an adult in the real world would be like and what things made me feel excited. And so after that internship, I feel like it just blew my mind a little bit. I didn't know what child abuse looked like in our community and what people and places were there to try to intervene and try to help and try to educate. And I was just in love with it. But then so that was in 2017. And in 2018, I applied for a job there and got a job. And ever since then, I just feel like my passion for child abuse and educating professionals and helping children and families has just grown exponentially.
Yeah.
But then my passion maybe burned out a little bit. And in 2022, I left the bridge to go work at Kenyon ISD and loved my job there, loved the people there. But then I came back to the bridge in 2024 because nothing really filled my cup like what I get to do at the bridge and the role we play in a child and family's life throughout an investigation. And so I came back and I love it. And now I'm the forensic services supervisor. And so I supervise a lot of our direct service staff, our forensic interviewers. We do community education with the public. I supervise that program and facilitate those kinds of trainings. And I still do forensic interviews.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Well, that's crazy. I'm blessed by the role that you fill. It's a tough role, I'm sure. And so I'm glad that you kind of found your way to where you're at, and it's good.
Yeah.
So Leslie, tell me about you.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Amarillo and didn't move away. Been here ever since. But actually, I guess that's a lie. I went to UT in Austin originally, but a couple things didn't work out, and so I went to WT, and I was able to graduate with my social work degree, and I just fell in love with my internship that I was able to have the opportunity to be an intern at the bridge for my last semester. And then after that, the day after I graduated, I think they called me and offered me the position that opened up. It wasn't a family advocate position, but it was something that was able to get me in the door and just be overall interested with working with the agency. And then was doing that for a couple years. And throughout that, I was able to do family advocacy, primarily Spanish-speaking families, because I was one of the only Spanish speakers at the time. and fell in love with what that role looked like. And then after doing that for a little bit, the position opened up for the support services supervisor, and that's the current role I hold. I've been doing that for 3 years, and I fell in love in a different way of just being a supervisor. That was something I didn't know that I was going to like when I first started working there, but I have, feeding into, growing the people that are able to do their direct services. I am a backup family advocate, and I supervise the current family advocates, as well as the family greeter position and the data entry specialist.
Okay.
And so that's a little bit about what I do.
So let's kind of start with somebody does not know. They've never heard of the bridge. They don't know what in the world they do. So where do we start? How do we start the conversation about the bridge?
Yeah. So the Bridge is a children's advocacy center, and that's still a lot of confusing words. And so we provide multiple services. So there's forensic interviews, there's family advocacy, which we'll talk more about. But really, so we were founded in 1989, and we were the first CAC in the state of Texas. And a group of prosecutors kind of decided that we needed help with these cases, that there was these cases are very complex.
Yeah.
And there's multiple different moving parts in this investigation process for children and for families. And really what was happening is a child was having to tell their story over and over again.
Yeah.
And so their story of abuse. And so whenever a child comes forward to tell, that's called a disclosure.
Right.
And so whenever they decide to disclose that abuse, they're telling their safe person. That's maybe a foster parent. That's maybe a sibling. It's a teacher, a mom, a dad. Just a safe person in that kid's life that they're like, this person's going to help me. And so they decide to tell that person. And then they have to, so that triggers a report. That report is made. And then at that point in time, before the bridge existed, a child would then have to talk to maybe a child protective services investigator if it was abuse involving someone in the home. Well, it's a crime. So now they're having to talk to a law enforcement investigator,
Right.
a detective. And now they're having to talk to a SANE nurse, a sexual assault nurse examiner. And then they're having to talk about it a couple of years down the road whenever trial's about to happen. And also maybe they're in counseling, which is great, but they're also having to talk about it in counseling.
Yeah.
And so a child's getting re-traumatized
Every single time.
every single time they're having to tell their story.
Yeah.
And they needed a way that wasn't going to have to happen.
Yeah.
And so thus came forward with the forensic interview, where a child gets to sit down with me or any of our forensic interviewers, and it's a fact-finding conversation. And so my goal is just to give a child an opportunity to talk about their story. And so we do that using open-ended and non-leading questions. So our goal is to let them tell their story in their own words, with us just kind of facilitating that discussion.
Yeah.
And so every forensic interview is video and audio recorded, and we tell each child that we're going to be doing that, and so they know what to expect. And we let them find the cameras and the microphone, and they're not these kinds of microphones. It's a little thing in a wall, but they usually are pretty excited about it. And then we just get to have that conversation about what's happened, and they get a chance to tell that story one time to me. And there are investigators watching basically a live stream of that conversation in a room across the hallway, to make sure that we're asking all the questions they need for their investigation, and that so that child isn't going to have to talk to 2-3 additional other people. They just get to talk to me. And so that's our primary service is forensic interviews. But obviously, as the field has grown, the needs for different families have grown. And so not only do we do those forensic interviews, now the family advocates are a huge part of that conversation, to talk with caregivers and to be that space for a parent to be able to process through what's happened to them too.
Yeah.
Because we know abuse affects the family. Perpetrators of abuse are usually either a family member or someone the child knows and loves.
Yeah.
So that could be a friend, a neighbor, a teacher, a coach, a pastor. It can be a whole bunch of different kinds of people.
Yeah.
And so, and I'll let Leslie talk a little bit more about the family advocacy portion of it, but I think that's in a brief nutshell how I'd explain the bridge. Our true passion is just to educate and equip kids, parents, families as they're navigating this really unfamiliar system.
So And you guys serve the whole Panhandle, right? Just you serve the 26 counties?
Correct.
There's not another one somewhere else.
Correct.
I think you guys have some remote sites or something. Is that right?
Yeah. We have satellite offices in Pampa, Dumas, Hereford, and Clarendon.
So you do the interviews there as well?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sweet. So what's next? So they've done the forensic interview, and this is where Leslie, you step in, right?
Yes. And well, it's during the forensic interview that's being conducted with the child or children that the family advocate is able to meet with a non-offending caregiver, meaning a caregiver that's not suspected of abuse or neglect or has no history that is of concern to this child or family that's here, or other families as well in our building. And so we're able to meet with them and able to hear their side and their perspective of what has happened, what they know, or if they don't know what's going on. So navigating those tricky situations and conversations about that, and often just letting them feel the emotions that they have, because often that's the first time they're talking about it, as well as that child. And so we're able to have that conversation as well as, get into why they may be here as far as what services we could provide for them. So we'll go over the forensic interview in a little bit more detail than maybe what the child would understand, and then be able to talk about a forensic medical exam that can be done on site. And we will then talk about what resources the family needs. So we want to take care of what the family needs in general, not just for being there, but as well as what could now be a new resource or need that they need because of what has happened. And so we'll talk through all sorts of things that they might need. If we don't have that resource, we'll connect them with someone that does and just build that rapport with that family from day one.
And you're also guiding the conversation between all the parties, right? Because like you said, Courtney, there's law enforcement that's involved. You've got CPS that's involved. There's all these different people that kind of have some skin in the game for every single case. And so you guys are pulling everybody together to make sure that we're all aware of what's going on. We all know the different parts and pieces and where things are at and all that kind of stuff, right?
We're really trying to enhance collaboration whenever it comes to these child abuse investigations, to make sure everyone's on the same page and has the same information, like you just said, and that everyone is on the same page for this family and for prosecution, for justice for this child. So,
yeah. And sometimes that involves going to court.
Yeah.
And testifying as to what you've been told. I actually learned the other day, I didn't know this. I thought once they had done the forensic interview that they didn't have to testify, and then I found out that they may end up having to testify, right?
Yeah, that's a Texas law thing. And so maybe also, anyways, it's a Texas law thing where a defendant has a right to face their accuser. And so in this case, it would be the child. And so the forensic interview doesn't take their place on the stand. The child may still have to testify, but the forensic interview can often be a corroboration of their story. As a forensic interviewer, I do testify in court to what the child told me, and I can testify to memory and the effects of child abuse on a child and trauma. And so it can be in addition to a case.
Yeah. So how do families end up at your door? Where do you guys come into the picture?
So what usually happens is that child tells their safe person,
right,
and that safe person makes a report.
To police, to CPS, to somebody.
To somebody.
Right.
Kind of depends on the circumstances of the case.
Yeah.
And so they make that report to whichever reporting agency. Law enforcement is always a safe bet. And then the law enforcement agency or Child Protective Services, they call the bridge. And so they schedule those services, and then the investigators are the people in touch with the families. And so really before they come to the bridge physically, we don't have any communication or conversations.
Yeah.
Parents or caregivers or community members are welcome to call us and ask questions. But really, as far as getting the family there, that's going to be on the investigator side.
Okay. Okay. So, we talked a little bit about, not having to relive this multiple times because each time they have to go over that again, it's just like a kind of like sticking the knife wound in again, right? That's kind of That's kind of how I see it. It's re-traumatizing them every single time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just not only they're having to talk about something that's very private and very intimate and very scary, and there may be shame around the topic.
Right.
And so it's a very complex thing for them to even decide to start talking about, and to have to continue to relive some of the most intimate parts of your thoughts over and over again with strangers.
Yeah.
That's a lot to ask of a human, of an adult.
Of any human.
Yeah. Let alone a child.
Yeah. Mm. So what is the family grader? Leslie, you mentioned that. What is that person?
Yeah, so that is going to be our staff person that will greet the families as soon as they walk in and welcome them. They'll be able to make sure that the right people that are meant to be there are there for that appointment, and explain that they'll be up at the front with them for some time before things get going. They'll play a movie. The kids get to pick one. We're very intentional to do everything child focused. So we will talk to the child and then the caregiver. So we want to make it as comfortable as possible. And so we will play that movie. We will offer, drinks and snacks, play with the kids. We have a ton of toys, and things to keep the kids entertained, and games and things like that, just while they're up at that front lobby area.
Yeah.
And they often answer questions, about just why they're here, how long it's going to take, things like that. So they're just really in charge of making the families feel comfortable and coordinating with other staff members on what's going on with the family, if they have questions, things like that.
Sure. So, I mean, other than, you said some snacks and maybe putting a movie on and things like that, what other ways do you guys try to, wrap around these kids and they're walking through something that's horrifying, right?
Yeah. So that's just often the first thing that we do. And again, trying to talk to the child just about, what they like to do for fun, or, if it's during the school year, what kind of programs are they in, things like that, just to start slowly building that rapport with that child. Because we are strangers, but we'll try to make them as comfortable again as possible. And so that's something that we do just to make them comfortable. But afterwards, we have that conversation with the caregiver about the resources. And so if they need, some food for just that moment, we can either purchase food for them, or we partner with Snack Pack, and we're able to give them a few or however many they need for that day. We have some clothing, and so if they need that, we'll pack them things that they need, hygiene items, whatever. Again, if the kids are going to a different home, whatever the situation may look like, we'll have just things that they kind of need. Emergency base is usually what we have, and then we'll connect them with long-term resources for other things.
Yeah. And these interviews, oftentimes they're not happening 8 to 5, right? I mean, if there's a report and it's severe enough, like you're going to the bridge right now, regardless of date or time, right?
Oh yeah, we have an on-call team that is on call 24/7, holidays, weekends, and so they're available at any point in time if something does happen. So say a child witnessed a homicide, then we would ideally get that child in that evening to have that forensic interview of what they were able to witness. Or if they're in an unsafe situation and have nowhere safe to go, then we'll definitely come in at any point in time to do those interviews.
So what is talk a little bit more about the forensic interview. So what is, it's different than just a counseling session where you're going through something, right? What is it about it that makes it different than just, disclosing to somebody else?
Yeah. So there is therapy and like therapeutic interviews where it's really more so focused on how someone feels and maybe how to move forward. There is interrogations where we think of, if anyone watches crime shows, we all think we've seen an investigation. We've seen documentaries of interviews. And so that's the more interrogation type of interview. But a forensic interview, what's unique about it is that it's fact finding.
Yeah.
And so I'm not here to really talk about anything feelings related. If it comes up, we can talk about it. But I'm here to talk about the facts.
Right.
And to do that in a neutral way, in an open-ended way, to give that child a chance to tell their story in their own words about what's happened. and to just facilitate that discussion in a way that everyone would be able to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're talking to a 3-year-old about abuse, it's really trying to ask them questions in a way that they're going to understand what I'm asking, and making sure that their answers make sense. Because if they don't make sense, then I need to figure out different ways to ask my questions.
So Leslie, you I know you talked about kind of immediate support connections there, but I mean, I've even heard it mentioned where it's like, the offender or the accused or whatever is in the same home, and so now we have to relocate, right? Because that child can't stay where the offender is and stuff like that. So you guys connect to other types of resources like that too, right?
Yes, so we'll have that conversation with the investigators if that's the route that they're going. And so if that looks like we need to call the local crisis shelter, the crisis center, they have a shelter that they're able to stay at if that's just for that night, or whatever the situation looks like, if they're able to go there. And so we'll partner with whoever we need to make sure that family has a safe place to stay. Depending on the circumstances, there's so many that we'll just leave it at that.
So other than so you're talking housing and clothing and food and things like that. Are there other resources that you can connect families to also?
Yeah, so one of our biggest encouraged resource is going to be counseling.
Yeah.
And so we are able to have contracted providers for counseling that we will recommend the child, depending on the situation, depending on insurance, what's the child's preference, things like that, transportation. So there's a lot of factors that the advocates have in their head all at the one time, just to be able to get that family to the best contracted counselor.
Right.
And so they're different than just other counselors in the area because they have specialized training. That either they come with us and apply to be contracted, or we will help them get that specialized training.
Yeah.
And so we really want to encourage kids and the caregivers, siblings as well. Like you mentioned earlier, trauma doesn't just impact the child, it impacts the whole family. So whatever that child or that caregiver needs to talk through and be guided, then they can do that with one of our counselors.
Right. And you're even growing to where you can do a lot of that in-house. I'm super excited about the conversation with Bobby, where you're training up counselors inside of the organization. Because, there's just nowhere near enough counselors that are able to really and truly help and work through trauma, right? And so training up the counselors there in the bridge to kind of be that almost one-stop, like what you need, we have here for you type thing is tremendous. And that's a big part of the campaign that you guys are doing right now, right?
Yeah, that's like our overall goal is for a family to be able to come to the bridge and get every service they need to move forward in their path to healing and justice. So they get to come to the bridge and they get their forensic interview. They meet with their family advocate. They get that forensic medical exam. So they're not having to go to the hospital to get that. They get that there. In our new facility, we're going to have showers. And so if the sexual assault just happened, they get a chance to take a shower and have a clean change of clothes. And then law enforcement, child protective services are there. And so the family will get to meet with them afterwards and to have a little bit of answers on what's going to happen next or what can they expect.
Yeah.
And so, and now with the counseling program, it really is. We're hoping, and it's going to be a place where a family and a child can come to definitely start that journey to healing.
Yeah. So talk to me about the numbers in the Panhandle. What are we talking about as far as how many investigations or interviews do you guys conduct a year-ish? Do you know?
Yeah, it's usually around 1,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Give or take, yeah.
And that's every single child we interview isn't. They don't make a disclosure,
Right.
But it is usually it's around 1,000.
Wow, that's a lot, and that's and then that's not all of the investigations that have to happen. If you have a kiddo that's 3 days old and there's a issue, you're not doing an investigation with them, but
Correct.
just the kiddos that are old enough to disclose and talk through things is 1,000. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And those are cases where it's probably child sexual abuse or child physical abuse, where there's marks or injuries on their bodies. Maybe they're a witness to a violent crime, witness to domestic violence. And so that's usually what that number is.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's a lot of other kinds of investigations that happen that we aren't involved in. And so that number is exponentially higher for the Panhandle.
Right. Yeah. So what are some other barriers do you guys think that, your child's disclosed this to you and then you have to go do this thing? What are other barriers and things that these families are going to run into?
So there could be the emotional and mental barrier as far as the caregiver coming to terms with what has happened, what they've just now found, that shock and not knowing what to do. No one has a guidebook on, okay, if this is disclosed to you, what do you do next? How to report, who to report to. Those are a lot of the barriers that can happen to get a family there and to get an investigation started. But there could be barriers as far as transportation, the family just getting there. So we will, if we know that that's a barrier, and we try to ask to make sure that that is something that's accounted for, we will partner. A lot of the local crisis centers for all of our 26 counties can provide transportation or law enforcement themselves or child protective services themselves. So that's, I feel like, common barriers for families getting there.
Getting there, and then beyond that is trying to figure out what life looks like after the disclosure.
And even for the child, the disclosure is a process, and either the child can decide to tell, they're an active disclosure, they're talking about what's happening, or maybe it's an accident. Maybe mom or dad walked into a room and saw maybe siblings acting out with one another, or maybe a little kid is playing with a doll in a really weird way, and it just makes someone ask more questions.
Yeah.
And so, if a child is actively choosing to tell, there is a laundry list of things they're already stopping to consider or have considered, especially because, like I said, we know that abuse is happening by someone in the home or a family friend, someone that the family all knows and loves.
Right.
And so
when I was growing up, it was stranger danger, right? Rough McGruff.
Yeah.
Like that's what you were told, is if somebody was hurting you, it was somebody that you didn't know.
And they're in a white van giving you candy.
Right.
Yeah.
And what we've really learned is that the vast majority of the cases are their family.
Yeah.
Somebody close to the family.
Yeah. I've interviewed over 1,000 kids.
Wow.
And I can't actively think off the top of my head a time that it's been a stranger.
Yeah.
So it's like less than 1% for Amarillo that is actually a stranger that's committing that abuse against a child.
Yeah.
So
it's somebody intimately aware with the family connected.
Right. And so if I'm a kid and it's my stepdad or stepmom or my uncle or my aunt, I'm already thinking about, how is this going to affect my mom whenever I tell her?
Right.
And, we've had kids say, like, I'm just like, my mom's been crying all the time, and I'm just like tired of seeing her cry about it. And kids want to protect their parents. And a lot of times when kids are disclosing, they do it in bits and pieces.
Yeah.
It's pretty uncommon for a kid to just sit down and say, this is every single thing that's happened to me from A to Z.
Right.
And it really is a process. And so it starts with them deciding to tell. And then they move forward in this process of disclosure of, okay, I've told, everyone's responded positively, and I can keep telling. But there are cases where they tell, or maybe they're testing the waters a little bit. Maybe they say they don't want to go to this aunt or uncle's house anymore because they make them feel weird.
Yeah.
Or, they're just kind of giving bits of information here and there. And maybe someone freaks out. Even a well-intended person freaks out.
Right.
Like, what do you do when you walk into a room and you see your children doing something they shouldn't be doing together?
Right.
Like, freaking out can be a normal response, but a child can see that and they're like, oh, that was a big deal. I should probably not say anything else about that.
Yeah.
Or they decide to tell, and the response from their community is that they're not believed. And so say it is stepdad or mom's boyfriend, and there are other kids in the home, and they're all stepdad and mom's kids. And so now I'm isolated, and my mom is mad at me, or maybe she's not even mad at me, but she's having to figure out how to move forward in this family dynamic where maybe
Right.
he's the breadwinner.
Right.
And now all the siblings are mad and they're saying, you better go and say that that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so the supportive factors in a kid's life can really determine what they do next.
Yeah.
Because they're feelers. Kids are feelers, they're observant.
Yeah.
And if they're feeling like maybe this wasn't worth it,
Yeah.
I could have endured this and I can still endure it for just to have the love of my family again.
Yeah. So what should people in general, like parents or, teachers or these different folks, what kinds of things should they be like watching for that if they see this or hear this, then, you probably need to make a report.
Yeah, so I think it kind of depends on the age, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what's not normal for a 3-year-old could be different for a 16-year-old. And so for those younger kiddos, maybe 5 and under, I would just kind of keep an eye out on what they're playing, how they're playing, what they're saying when they're playing. If there's ever any type of, developmentally inappropriate knowledge of, sexual terms or sexual positions, that should always kind of stop and make us pause and ask more questions.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's any huge changes of behaviors for any range of child. Maybe your 3-year-old is potty trained and now there's a huge regression in potty training.
Right.
Or maybe your 16-year-old used to love coming around and being around and now all of a sudden they're just in their room refusing to talk to you, which could just be normal 16-year-old behavior.
Yeah.
We've all been around a teenager.
Yeah.
That can be a lot.
Yeah.
But I think most importantly, just feeling comfortable enough to ask questions and making it a consistent thing in your kid's life that you're interested in them. Because, kids are, the older they get, the more into phones they are. And so really just trying to have those points of connection with your kiddo of like, hey, tell me what's happening in your life. Who are some of your friends? Like, who are your friends? Who's your best friend? Who do you not like? And just really wanting to encourage connection with your kid and seeing how are they acting online. Maybe you have an 8-year-old and they're playing Roblox and we've all seen the big scary things about
Right.
Roblox. But maybe you're a single mom just trying to figure out how to survive and your kid playing Roblox is a game changer for you.
Yeah.
And so maybe
So it means I can cook dinner,
exactly
do laundry. Whatever.
exactly. And so maybe it's you playing Roblox with them sometime and seeing the kinds of interactions they're having or watching them play the game and seeing how they're interacting with people online. Are there weird relationships, things you should maybe ask more questions about? And so I think it really just starts with a willingness to have the conversation and a willingness to ask questions. And you don't even have to be so direct as to say, has something happened with your uncle and that's why you don't want to go over there?
Yeah.
But it can just be as simple as, hey, I noticed you don't want to go over there anymore. How come? And letting them tell you more about it. Because for a 16-year-old, they could just be going through it.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as, you're just annoying me as my mom today, and I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Right.
Okay, cool. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Right.
But letting your kids know you're curious and that you care and that you notice these things about them, I think goes a long ways.
Yeah. I'm going to circle back to something that you kind of breezed past that I think is very important for folks to know. And that is the time, we watch SVU or we watch some crime show and like the whole thing is done in an hour, right? From the minute that something happened until the end credits. And it's just, and it just blows past the fact that, these things can drag on for several years. So, I mean, kind of talk us through, I mean, that's the norm, right? Not having a solution like right away.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it can take, like you said, years for it to go to prosecution, for it to go to a trial, to see a courtroom. And because, it all happens right up front. So the report gets made, you come to the bridge, you get your interview, get family advocacy, you have your forensic medical exam, and then there's still an investigation that has to happen after that. And that's, interviews with suspects, that's collecting evidence, that is getting affidavits from everyone involved, that's talking to people around the family as far as like collaterals go. And so it does take a whole lot of time. And I think I could go on a whole soapbox about how CSI and crime shows have kind of hurt the criminal justice system in a large way because, there's a lot of misconceptions that you can get from watching crime shows about how this happens. And you you get a quote unquote rape kit and there's always DNA, and DNA means that this definitely happened,
Yeah.
you know, and so, but that's just really not how it works. Like in the real world, most likely there's probably not DNA whenever it comes to a forensic medical exam. And that doesn't mean it did or didn't happen. But I think whenever you're just watching a lot of crime shows or crime podcasts or things like that, sometimes it could make you a little rose-colored glasses or not have a huge
clear picture.
A clearer picture,
Sure.
what's happening.
Yeah. Because like you said, it could take a long time for it to come through, and finally get to a point where it's actually in front of a jury. So Leslie, one of your roles is to connect, and I think we kind of hit on this a little bit, but just to circle back to it. So to connect families with some mental health resources, right? Some of that you guys are developing and growing the program in-house, but then also, in the community, right? But, we live and work in Amarillo, but outside of Amarillo, there's not the access to the mental health resources that we have, even not that we have anywhere near enough here, but
Right.
You go to Borger, and how many counselors are there that are trauma informed in Borger? Probably not very many, right? So then you have these struggles with trying to find them somebody that has the space, and then the ability to get them to come in to these weekly or biweekly sessions and things like that. These are big challenges that families have to navigate, and so you're kind of there to kind of help them through that process, right?
Right. Yes. So each family would be assigned a family advocate, and they're responsible for following through with the referral that was made. Again, taking in all the factors of that family, if that's transportation, if that's insurance, if that's the child's age, if that's virtual or in-person counseling, what the schedule of the parent looks like, if they're working, if they're not, all the factors. Yeah. And so we're in charge of making sure that that family, number one, is educated about counseling, and we can get help with thinking through what the purpose of counseling is, debunk like myths and barriers, again, getting them to go to counseling. Yeah. And so we have a little over 20 contracted counselors. And so we do have some that are in smaller towns around us, like Pampa or like Clarendon and things like that. But we do have counselors that are able to have virtual or telehealth sessions with the clients as well, to an area that has no trauma-informed counselors.
Yeah. Man, it's just so tough. So we kind of touched on it, but you guys are in the middle of a campaign and you're growing it, and there's going to be like a whole section that's devoted to like the mental health piece, right? And then the other pieces, what's on the horizon once the building is finished to be able to do? What's all encompassed in the building, the new building?
Yeah, there is going to be the wing for mental health on its own, and so there's going to be a separate entrance, and so that way families are just comfortable in that area and don't have to, involved with all the direct services that come in from investigation side of things. So we'll still have the direct services area where they'll be able to enter through, and all the rooms that we need for all the services. Of course, we'll have a training center, and so we're able to give out trainings to the community, as far as professionals that work with kids, or our own team, to be able to offer the trainings that we need to, and then we will have the law enforcement area as well as CPS able to co-house essentially with them.
Right.
And then, of course, offices for all of our staff as well, and hopefully new staff.
Yeah. Because, and you kind of touched on that, but I mean, how much easier would it be to be able to walk across the hall to talk to the CPS investigator instead of trying to call them and find a time to sit down together and things like that? Just having you guys like there together to really be able to make this difficult process as simple as possible on the families that are walking through this, and just staying on top of all the different parts and pieces that there are. So it's really exciting.
Yes, it is. It'll be so much easier. And I know Courtney has a little bit more involvement with the investigators if she wanted to add anything to that as well.
I just think that it's going to provide a unique opportunity for some of our rural investigators to have, the largest police department in our service area there as a resource to them.
Yeah.
Because, some of these smaller towns or smaller counties, they may not get a lot of child sexual abuse cases. And so they may investigate one a year or one every 2 years. And so it'll be so nice to be able to have a resource to point them to, like, let me go grab so-and-so, and they may be able to help you if you want that. And so just really helping to equip some of our rural law enforcement partners as well.
Awesome. Very cool. So what are some things about the bridge that kind of the average Joe doesn't know?
So the bridge, we talked a lot about law enforcement and child protective investigations, and so that's called a multidisciplinary team approach.
Right.
And so we're combining all the disciplines together to, like I said, kind of enhance the coordination of cases. And so we are not law enforcement. We are not child protective investigations. We do not work for the DA's office. We are a nonprofit that's grant funded and private donor funded. And so while we work alongside those law enforcement and child protective investigations, we are just a small part of that investigation. And so we're there to provide that forensic interview and to help point families in the right direction and educate. But as far as anything beyond that investigation goes, that's always going to kind of fall back to your investigator. And so if you have questions about where your case is at, or I need to talk to so-and-so and I don't know how to get a hold of them, or, things like that, we'll be able to point you in that direction. But as far as in terms of the whole investigation goes, we don't really do much beyond give that child the space to tell their story.
Right.
After the forensic interview and after they go into the bridge, it's all in the hands of the investigators. And so it's this whole puzzle that everyone has their own pieces that they're responsible for putting into place, but we're all very intentional to also stay in our lanes and to make sure that I don't have the knowledge or the power or any of what you need, but here's a person that can help you.
Right.
So just not wanting to leave families feel clueless, but giving them answers and someone who can maybe help them.
Well, and I would think being kind of autonomous in that way and not like beholden to the prosecutors or the police department, or you stand alone. And so I think families could feel more comfortable knowing that the police may have a preconceived idea of this or that, and so being able to stand apart and just provide facts that and not be kind of, like I said, beholden to some other group, that would make things more reliable, I would think.
And we tell the families, the family advocates, with every caregiver that they sit down, they tell them at the beginning, have you heard about the bridge, or has anyone told you what the bridge is? And after their response, we'll make sure either confirming what they told us, or if they don't know anything, explaining that we are a nonprofit, we are a neutral third party, and our sole focus is to make sure that child has a safe space, but also be able to provide support, not just for that day, but for the life of the case.
Yeah. So good. Well, so is there anything that we haven't touched on that you feel like we should let the public know about the bridge? Anything else? And if not, it's okay.
I had 2 points and I forgot one of them.
Is one of them the community education?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was. I think, and that's a good caveat, but the child abuse and tackling child abuse is a community-wide effort.
Yeah.
It requires people to be a safe person for a child to tell what's happened to them. It requires people to know what to do whenever a child says something to them. And so I just want to encourage the community that if a child does come forward and tells you, hey, this has been happening and I'm really uncomfortable about it, you can always make an online report on the Department of Family and Protective Services website, the FPS. You can call it in and make a statewide report, or you can always call your local law enforcement agency, and they'll send someone out to take that report as well. But everyone in the state of Texas is a mandated reporter.
I was going to say that. Yeah, we're all mandatory reporters. Yes. Somebody says something, you got to say something.
Everyone above the age of 18 is a mandatory reporter.
Yeah.
And I will say,
what does that mean?
That means you have to report whenever you have a suspicion of child abuse.
Right.
And so it's not saying you have to have all the facts together.
Right.
Please don't do your own investigation. If a child comes to you and says, hey, this has been happening to me, you can maybe ask who and ask. But then after that, once you kind of determine, are they going back to that person or are they in a safe place? Then you have what you need to make a report.
Yeah.
If you're worried that your kiddo has suddenly started acting out and is performing maybe sexual acts with dolls, then that's enough to make a report. You have that suspicion. It's not saying you need to know with 100% reasonable doubt that something's happened.
Yeah.
You just have to have that suspicion.
Because if at being the mandatory reporter, if something happens and then they find out that like you knew about it and you didn't report it, then you like could get in trouble for that.
Oh yeah,
because you allowed it to continue and you knew about it.
Especially if more abuse happened after you were notified.
Right.
That's a pretty big deal, and I feel like lately our prosecutors' offices and law enforcement agencies are taking that pretty serious. If a child was continued to be abused and you knew about it and did nothing to stop it, they are taking that very seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're almost, I don't know, but almost as liable as the individual that's doing the abuse if you know about it and you just let it keep happening. Golly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Awful. What gives y'all hope? This is heavy. This is heavy, hard work, right? But what gives you guys hope about this work?
I think for me, it's sitting across from a child in their forensic interview and they say either thank you or I've never been able to talk about this. And they say that it's a safe environment and they felt safe and they felt like it was a place where they got to have fun. Like kids often leave the bridge saying like, when do I get to come back? And so for me, and a big part of whenever I came back to the bridge, it was really just an opportunity to be there to support a child and a family in like one of the most confusing and dark times.
Yeah.
And to be able to be there for them and support them in that brief moment.
Yeah.
And then help. And then they never remember who I am. If I see them on the street, they're not going to recognize me. But we spoke for an hour and we got into some nitty-gritty details. And they get to leave feeling better. And like there's a weight lifted off their chest that finally someone knows and someone's going to help me.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that's what is fulfilling to me is getting to see kids feel relief whenever they finally get to start talking about what's happening.
Sure. Wow. What about you, Leslie?
Yeah, I think what gives me hope, two parts. I think part of it is, as a family advocate myself, being able to see that we can educate caregivers about what has happened and just guide them through the process. Nobody gets like a toolkit on how to handle everything, how to parent from here on out. Like, what do those conversations need to look like? What to avoid, things like that, that we should be able to talk to someone about and for them to feel heard and supported and taking care of their needs, because how can they worry about counseling when they can't even put food on the table now because the breadwinner was the alleged perpetrator. And so taking care of the family as a whole and not just seeing them as another number for us. We really want to make sure they feel seen and supported. And then the other part is just knowing that we have such a great group of multidisciplinary team members and all the work that we put into it. Each of the departments or the domains have their own lane, like Courtney said, but we all work really closely together for that common goal, to keep kids safe and to prevent it from happening again, and making sure that whatever that justice looks like for that kid, we will be there, and aim for that.
Yeah.
So I think just that having such a great team, being able to work together
For sure. Wow. Well, I'm glad for the work that you guys do. I think it probably plays a really critical role when, by the time we get involved as an organization, they've already decided that the kiddo needs to not be there and they need to be somewhere else and somewhere safe. And, we're stepping in to try to help them feel seen in that craziness in that moment. But you guys are coming in earlier to this chaos of this kiddo's life and being able to kind of shoulder some of that burden, I think, with them is just such an important role, and just trying to make sure that these kiddos get justice, right? I mean, that's just a really, it's just such an important role, and I'm just grateful that you guys came and shared what you guys do, and I'm grateful for the work that you are doing to help kiddos that are going through some stuff. So,
well, like I said earlier, it's everyone's job to protect kids.
Yeah.
And the first step of that is education. And every single person out there is a potential future jury member, and you don't know what kind of case that could be.
Yeah.
And it's your job to be educated and to realize what abuse looks like in our community.
Yeah.
In Texas, every 1 in 6 child was going to experience abuse before their 18th birthday.
Wow.
And so it's happening. It's here. It's prevalent in our community. And so we have to take that first step of what's abuse and what do I do if someone tells me, and what does reporting look like? And so that plays a role in our education. We want to educate the public, educate professionals on what to do and how to respond when a child does come forward with an outcry. And so we have our community education where we educate professionals, and we're just kind of gearing up on curriculum on how to educate parents on online safety and kind of some warning signs and things to look out for their own children too.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank y'all so much for coming and sharing what the important work that you guys do, and I just appreciate that you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's definitely a calling, huh?
It definitely is. And everyone's always like, I don't see how you do that job. But I'm like, you know what I could never do? Be a teacher. Sitting in front of a room with kids, could be chalked up to my worst nightmare. No, I'm just kidding. But everyone has a calling and a job they're designed to do, and for whatever reason, it's ours.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful to bear that burden and be a part of such a strong community. We really are blessed in Amarillo to have a network of people that want to step in and help.
Sure.
And a community, not even just the professionals, but the community is supporting kids as they come forward too. And so it's a great place to be involved in helping kids.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank y'all guys so much for coming. Bracken, thanks for your episode sponsorship. If you need help with your roof, definitely give Bracken a call. Again, his number is 806-340-6205. Guys, we do placement packages. That's our main gig here at Panhandle Orphan Care Network. And so we step in once the kiddos have been placed somewhere new. Then we give them a suitcase, a Bible, a teddy bear, a book, a toy, and a blanket. And then on top of that, it's clothes and diapers and car seats and just all the things that they need. And we deliver to the 26 counties of the Panhandle. So in order to do that, we need support. And so we ask folks to be a placement package partner. That looks like maybe giving us $100 a month. That gives us the funding to buy all the clothes we need for one placement package. And maybe it's $50 a month where you can buy a case of diapers, or $10 a month buys us an outfit. And so if each member of the community can get involved in that way, that's going to allow us to continue to provide more and more placement packages to kiddos as they're coming into this situation. And so, guys, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. We've got some exciting stuff. Part 2 of The Bridge we'll post next week. And so, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.